or the entire first year of my college life, I will not do anything. I will just do this course. That's not the correct mindset. The line I'm looking for over here is learn on the go. So point number one for all the students are listening, don't be stuck in the tutorial hell. Even if you know like the basics or whatever, just apply, just get involved, just okay, you will fail, whatever, what's the big deal? nothing, no big deal, right? You're not losing out on anything. Take part in hackathons, write a blog, go to events, apply to these programs, or contribute to open source. Open source on the other hand, like even beginners can contribute. I can tell you this right now. There are also non-code contributions that you can take part in, even one of the biggest projects in the world. So you have like the Cloud Native Computing Foundation has some amazing projects, right? So even in those projects, you can contribute as a beginner. In Kubernetes, Kubernetes is like the second largest project in the world. You can contribute in a non-code way. No coding is required either. There's a really nice talk on YouTube by the rocking non-code contributions from last KubeCon. So Google it, you will find it on YouTube. Watch that, it's pretty cool. So you'll get a lot of insights on that. Oh, by the way, if 900 people are watching, I also have my YouTube channel. It's called Kunal Kushwaha. You can check it out. I only post like tech content over there, so you will not find anything else. It's just like technical tutorials mostly. That's it. Pretty cool stuff. All right, so that was let me just get some people involved as well. A lot of people are requesting me as a speaker. All right, Shive is here. Shive, would you like to give your thoughts on tutorial hell? You're on mute if you're speaking.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kunal, for inviting me over. And I guess having sort of graduated from college, I did have my share of mistakes that I did while being in college, and probably the biggest one that I had done, at least in my initial couple of years, was not really actively taking part. And I would say that that's what's sort of attributed to both really the lack of opportunities at that point of time that were there inside of my system. Like when I had joined college, just a lack of general awareness amongst a lot of the folks from my college, but also there was this always this general trend and scenario that the interactions between the seniors and the juniors is not really there. And probably I think that just focusing a lot more on the college studies itself and just limiting myself to that for the first year of my college was something that I really feel that if, whatever things that I did from the start of my second year, that is taking part in communities and helping through by, let's say, collaborating with hackathons and different kind of events and communities, that if I would have done, let's say, from my first year of college, that would have really been great. But of course, the biggest positive that I would just want to suggest is that you are never too late to start anything. Like whether you are in your first year of college or in your fourth year of college. Even if you start even in your fourth year of college, you can learn and gain a lot, whether it's in open source, hackathons, content creation, anything, right? And that's the best part about it. So I personally also started taking part in hackathons only during my third year. Yet I was able to take part in more than 80 plus hackathons as an participant, organizer, and whatever, right? And you just need that one positive impact that you can then you can start with. And of course, as you grow and you communicate with others in the community, that just goes on to help you push you forward and also around you as well.
For sharing, Shiva, and I could not agree more. I have that in my the next pointers as well. And see, the thing is, I'm really overwhelmed with like close to 1,000 people in the first space that I have done. So how can we manage this well? So I'll be okay, how we can do this. I'll be going through the points that I have for like the mistakes that you should avoid as a student in the stream, and then you can basically request to be a speaker if you want to add on to it, or if you have any questions. Let's do the questions in the end. That's fine. All right. Well, thanks a lot for sharing, Shive. Now, the second point is also sort of like the second mistake that I have realized many people make is when you're learning something, right? So obviously people look for resources. Now there are so many resources, there are like so many online courses and like Udemy, Coursera, online platforms. Then there's YouTube, there are books, there are like PDFs or whatever. Some people learning peers and all these things. The biggest mistake that students make when you are gaining knowledge via any of these things, be that an in-person event or whatever, is certificate collection. That is the biggest mistake that students make. Now, it does not, please, before jumping to conclusions, it does not mean that not every certificate is good, or it does not mean that you should not be enthusiastic about certificates. I'm not saying that. Definitely, if you achieve something, you get a nice certificate for that, you should be proud of it, because you accomplished something, you're getting like something in return. But an example I can give you is, I was making a YouTube tutorial. I was having a live session with like some of the best people around the world in communities, like Swift, who is the CEO of MLH. I was having a session with him. Pablo, who manages the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador community. Even like Kelsey Hightower, I had him on the session as well, a live session. You know what students were asking me? It was like literally a YouTube live session. And I was like, hey, these are some great people, you can join. Students were saying, hey, will we get certificates? If yes, then only we will join. That's the sort of mindset I'm talking about. Another example, I'm doing my YouTube course right now, the complete data success algorithms. Thousands of people are loving it. They're giving great feedback. Other people are also asking, hey, Kunal, will you be able to give us certificates for this? Otherwise, we won't be able to do. They're literally saying that. So with certifications, when I've interacted with people like, some amazing people I see in the stream, like, Sanyam is there, who has so many cloud native certifications. So certifications that like, sort of like relate to the real world. So they have like proper examinations and everything, like they're like cloud certifications, they're like Linux Foundation certification, like TensorFlow certification exams or whatever. These do have value quite a lot, But if you're talking about, let's say, any particular course in which they did not evaluate your experiences, okay, in this just you do next. For example, Udemy courses. Do you really need to give an exam to get Udemy certifications? No, you don't. Coursera certifications. Do you really need to give an exam? You just do next. You will get a certification, which is great. I'm again not saying that don't, certifications are bad or anything, or you should not do certifications. Please don't try to say that Kunal is saying certifications are not good. No. Definitely, if you're achieving something, if you're getting something out of it, even if you attend an event and you get a certificate out of it, did I go on mute? I think so. Shive? Am I audible? Right, I think I'm audible. Okay. It's like something was happening. Alright, never mind. Cool. So yeah, that's what I was saying. So basically, yeah, and by the way, for all the speakers who have requested, I see Danny here, I see so many other famous, big personalities and who have helped like thousands of people around the world. I'll get you on the stage. No worries. But yeah, so for example, one more thing, was a very important point I forgot. Certifications. What was it? Yeah. So for example, sometimes this is the biggest mistake people make. Just for the sake of getting a certificate, people invest where they should not. So I have literally seen, you might have heard people say, hey, don't do unpaid internships, right? That's okay. I mean, let's say I can argue that, okay, maybe unpaid internships can be some great volunteer work or whatever. That's great. Okay, I agree that can be a point of discussion. But do you know, literally, some students actually pay to get an internship. Like you're working for the company and you're paying them as well. That's what's happening here in India. And none of the good companies are doing it, right? All the good companies, they obviously respect the interns, pay their interns or whatever. But just for the sake of getting the certificate, people actually pay for an internship. They actually not even get anything out of it, like the exposure or whatever. None of these things are there. So certificates only have value if you are getting the value yourself. That's how I can sum it up basically. If you're getting skills out of that certification, great, you're getting the certificate, cool. If you're doing an internship and you're getting like some skills out of it, you're getting some experience out of it, amazing, yeah, certificate is great. But that should not be the sole purpose. And some people, one more thing, this is specific to like here in colleges, I've seen quite a lot. Some of the tier 1 colleges like IITs and stuff, for those of you who don't know, for those of you who are watching from outside India, IITs are like the biggest Indian, it's like the very high level Indian colleges, right? Very hard to get into. So some people, like I've met so many friends of mine, they were like, hey, do you want to apply to be this campus representative of this event, or this tech event? I'm like, sure. Like what would we have to do? Like we would have to learn about some marketing, share about the marketing initiatives, sell their courses or whatever. I'm like, hey, if I was really into marketing, I would. But they were like, hey, bro, it's IIT. You will get the IIT certificate. I'm like, wow, that certificate has no value. It's like just a campus representative certificate. So if again you want to get into event management, you want to get into like all these things, go for it. You will get great exposure. But definitely such things are not really a standout thing on your resume or whatever. The only certifications that I think do matter in the real world when you're looking for a job or something is the ones that really have some exams. But I have some experienced people over here. I can add Danny here. I can add who else is here? So many people. Cool. Danny, can you hear me?
I'm excited to be here. I speak at like a ton of colleges all over the world, and so to be able to be in a talk focused on college students, I think is incredible. I think you've hit on some very key points. For those that don't know me, I'm Danny Thompson. For over 10 years of my life, I spent frying chicken in gas stations before learning how to code, and it completely changed my life to where I've worked at several tech companies, and now I'm on the developer ecosystem team at Google. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, Kunal is dead on when he says one thing in particular about certificate flag chasing. And it even happens with like events at Google, right? We've done one series of events called Android Study Jams, where I teamed up with a bunch of Googlers and we were leading Android like workshops. And one of the biggest requests were, are we getting a certification for attending this workshop? I'm like, you don't think the knowledge that you're getting from the actual people that work on the Android dev team at Google is worth more than some arbitrary piece of paper that nobody's going to pay attention to? In my honest opinion, there are only a handful of certifications in this entire world that mean anything. The rest, a certification doesn't exist for you to showcase to an employer. It's a metric that you use for yourself to kind of look at, hey, I've crossed this much. And guess what? Like, this is letting me know that I've done this thing, so I can look at it saying, I've got this much more to do, I've got that much more to do. But an employer, honestly, for the vast majority of them, they are not going to look at a cert from some arbitrary workshop or YouTube video that you watched, or even, Coursera or Udemy, and be like, whoa, they got this $10 certification, I must have this person on my team. They're not looking at that. They're looking at your technical ability. They're looking at your command of the language and the command of the tools that you're utilizing. That is going to dictate your pay income. That is going to dictate the levels of positions that you get. And most of all, that's going to dictate how valuable of a developer you truly are. The piece of paper, it's just for you and nobody else.
Thanks for sharing, Danny. And please do feel free to, put your points, like any of your points you would like to put forward, once we move forward, like mistakes people should avoid. But let's move on to the next one. And yeah, I see so many people requesting. I'll give everyone a chance. Do not worry. So the next thing that I see people making as a mistake, these are my personal opinions. I think many people would disagree. It's computer programming. This is something I think is a mistake that many people make. It's not like you should not do competitive programming, but if in the end your goal is just to crack big companies, even like one of the biggest like FAANG companies or whatever, you can do that just via like LeetCode and stuff. I'm not saying data success algorithms are not important, but the DSA rounds you can easily ace even for big tech companies with just LeetCode. It's by a person named Alex. So he has worked with Facebook and like other such big tech companies, and like has so many years of experience. So they mentioned that it's like, and I totally agree with this. It's like that you are in a pen fight. You are taking a rocket launcher. It's something like that. So for people who are listening from India, I can give an example, like a quick example. So it's like cracking interview rounds with computer programming. It's like cracking IP university exams after preparing for JEE Advance. Do you understand? So Computer programming, I can say it very, 1,000 people are watching. I have no hesitation in saying this. It's the biggest mistakes that students make. Now you may say something like, and if anyone wants to add on to it, I'm more than happy to listen to your views. Someone may say like, hey, I got into this company via computer programming or whatever. Definitely it helps, but it is definitely, it's very complicated stuff. What I'm trying to say is, I have seen people who do nothing in their entire 4 year and only do computer programming because they want to get a good job. That is not required. CP is not mandatory. You can do it without CP as well. Now, when do we need to do CP? Take a look at one of the biggest computer programmers in the world. They do CP for CP. Computer programming is a sport. It's not mandatory. I cleared all my Google rounds without computer programming. I've never done computer programming. I got like so many opportunities and everything. So, and not just me, many people who work at these companies, they also, whom I had on my channel. So my personal experience and others' experience as well. And I have some of the people who work at like Facebook, Google on my podcast. In the future, I will have them, and the topic of discussion is this only. Computer programming is one of the biggest mistakes that students make. So definitely, it's not like you should skip it or whatever. It totally depends on your interest. But if your end-term goal is just to crack a good company, if that's why you're doing CP, no. You can do it without it as well. Danny, go ahead.
So to preface this, in the last 18 months, I've helped almost 700 people land their very first jobs in tech. And so I'm very, very, very familiar and comfortable with the interview processes. Yesterday, actually, we led an entire workshop on helping people become more comfortable with data structures and algorithm problems, and making it so that when they enter a job interview, they can control that. Our guest speaker was actually the technical bar raiser for Amazon, where he led the the technical interview portion of the interview process. And when Kunal first said CP was not mandatory, my knee-jerk reaction was, I think you're completely wrong, but he's actually spot on. Because I can tell you, I've met some competitive programmers that do it for the sport, and for me, I feel like understanding DSA is crucial for only a handful of companies. You need to be very comfortable with the process, don't get me wrong, but it's only most of the time used in the interview process for a lot of places. Of course, the FAANGs of the world, it's a little bit different. But outside of that, for the vast majority of companies, you're not using DSA all the time. And so it's just a metric that you utilize to get past the interview process. And so being good at that, you can absolutely get job-ready skills from a LeetCode hacker rank level, instead of going to these levels where it's like, can you solve this question in 13 minutes or something like that? I think, Kunal, initially I was disagreeing with you, but you're absolutely correct. You can definitely get job-ready skills from one of those free websites without dedicating your entire career to that.
I agree, and it's like people manipulate my words on LinkedIn or whatever. When I made a post about this, I was like, dude, I'm just saying that do it if you have your interest. It's a sport. It's not mandatory. I'm not saying don't do computer programming. Definitely, if you have interest. And now some people would say, hey, Kunal, what about all these other Google Code Jam, Kickstart, and Hashcode, and Facebook Hacker Cup competitive coding rounds? Many people get 2-digit ranks in this, and they directly get hired by these companies. Yeah, that is totally correct. But from interacting with so many people, not every student can do computer programming at such a high level at a worldwide scale. But if you're just talking about creating your online interview rounds, or your in-person telephonic interview, your technical interview, or whatever, LeetCode and all these other platforms are more than enough. But yeah, like Danny mentioned, and I say this every time. I'm doing an entire course on this right now on my channel. DSA, data structures, algorithms, problem solving. Please do not skip it. It's very, very important. It's definitely going to be asked in your interviews. Definitely going to be used in your development and stuff as well. But CP is not mandatory. You can do it if you have interest, but you should not feel demotivated. Okay, am I missing out? No, you're not missing out.
100%. And it kind of goes to one really big point, right? That the skills necessary to be a developer and the skills necessary to pass an interview are not the same skills. And sometimes you have to learn extra things to be very strong in an interview process, and you need to learn different skills to be very strong as a developer. And to be completely honest, the proof of that is I've literally helped almost 700 people land the first jobs in tech. These weren't people that weren't ready to have these jobs. They had the technical ability and they knew what was necessary to be valuable to a company and kill it in these roles. The problem was they had focused so much on one side, they completely forgot the other. And so if you're spending all your time focused on CP, yeah, you're going to learn a lot about data structures and algorithms, but that may not always lead to the most readable and usable code that would be done in production. And an example of that, even yesterday, when we were doing a lot of these data structure and algorithm problems, we were looking up solutions that other people had submitted, and they come up with these really interesting, clever, and unique ways to solve these problems, but they weren't best practices that you'd want to see in a production database. And so sometimes, like, using the readability factor is huge, because readable code, in my opinion, is way more important than coming up with the most random solution that would probably get you high points in a competitive programming setting. That balance is crucial. So I love it, Kunal.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
I think we'll do a separate space on clearing technical rounds. That'd be a fun one. All right, moving on to the next one, and this is not a mistake. It's not mandatory either, because I know many people who don't do this and have actually made it big. Some people build in secret. Now, hear me out. Like, building in secret, sometimes it does work. Like, I know many people. The only reason I'm saying this is because I know people who are not really active on socials that much, but they are building in secret something like indirectly, even though they're not posting stuff or whatever. One thing that I have seen in common with all these people who make it via off campus, taking public with 1,164 people, which is a lot. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining. So yeah, that's probably about it. But we can go on and on. And on Twitter, like Danny, Shive, and so many other people, they speak about learning in public, quite a lot. Even at CIVO, where I work, we have like Anais, who has her own 100 Days of Kubernetes show or challenge, and like tutorials on our channel that's going on. So many other, I don't know, there are 1,000 people are watching. I definitely have to give some shout outs to some amazing people doing great work in the community. Sayam, for example, he has his channel. He shares a lot about cloud native on Twitter. There's David, there's Bob, and so many other people. So that's what learning in public is, sharing in public. It's not just learning, it's also helping in public, because the only thing better than helping people is helping people who help people. Now, but we are talking about students, so I'm not going to deviate from the topic. How can it help students? It can help you in a way to get discovered, right? So I still remember when before joining CIVO, I'm just going to add Sayam. So Sayam knew me via my social profile, and he was like, dude, you're doing great work. And then I reached out to him, and then then now rest is history. Now I work there. Sayam, hi.
Yeah, hi Kunal.
Yeah. So that's basically like about it. As a student. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so very, very interesting topic, and especially in college days, you can actually make most out of the things which other people might miss. And these days, things have become so competitive in general, whether it's for experienced as well. So it becomes really important that this topic of discussions, that how students can mend their ways to get the most out of the 4 years of journey that they are doing right now. So very rightly said, like the learning in public is not mandatory, absolutely, but it helps a lot, because you can make mistakes and other people are there to guide you. There are a lot of experienced folks who have not, who will be there to guide you, especially in the communities. When you dive into the community world, where always people are helpful, you can take guidance from anybody, XYZ experience, XYZ person, XYZ position. They're always able to help. Obviously, the time should permit, but most of the people would be able to help you out and guide you in the direction that you should be going to achieve a particular thing. And learning in public definitely gives you an edge, because you get to see what other people are doing. You get to, especially Twitter. And I actually find a lot of great content from Twitter, great tech content, rather than from LinkedIn, to be very honest. So you get to see damn amazing things on Twitter that people are working on, and how you can contribute to in some way. You might find your interest in some of the technologies that that you see on Twitter, and when you try to get involved, in the community, they help you, you start doing your first contributions, and then your journey just goes on, and you won't even realize how you came so far along in this journey.
If you're not doing anything else, at least if you're making a project, make that in public, because like Saya mentioned, community, you get the feedback, and when you're doing it on yourself, it's very easy to get distracted or burn out or whatever. And these people, so many amazing people who have such amazing experience, you will learn from them. You will, you'll try to see what all solutions exist for my problem, right? So if you can share your idea, you can get feedback on that. You can, you're creating an open source project that's also learning in public. You're working in open source. Let's say if you're making a PR or whatever, you can get feedback on that. As a developer, it will help you grow tremendously. It's fine, not mandatory to share your accomplishments or whatever you don't want to. Don't do it, no problem. But actually, at least all the technical part or all the community part, all the mentorship part that you're doing, do that in public at least. That is something that I've seen in every one of the connections that I know who are doing some great work. The technical community part, they do that in public, because community means there's public, right? Inclusiveness, and everyone can share their views and all these things. All right, Danny, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, I love the whole idea of learning in public. It's something that I talk about quite a bit, but not just for the idea of the community, but it also helps you have a reference of what you've learned at one point, and you can usually scroll back and remind yourself of how far you've come. And for me, I love 100 Days of Code, because you can literally see all the posts that you made over 100 days and see how far you've come within that time period. 100 days is a little over 3 months. You're going to cover quite a bit about a subject, whatever it is that you're learning. The one key difference, and I kind of want to mention this because of what Siam mentioned, LinkedIn is definitely a different community and audience from Twitter, but I definitely think you should be investing time on LinkedIn. The main reason why is there's 675 million monthly users on LinkedIn, of which 90 million are recruiters, decision makers, and hiring managers for businesses all over the world. You need to be putting yourself and presenting yourself in a way that's creating that value and showcasing what it is that you know. So I wouldn't be posting 100 days of code on there, but every single finished project that you have that is not a YouTube tutorial, right? Don't post a to-do list. But if you're making other projects, that is the perfect place to display that. And one of the coolest things is, think about the value of the network that you create on a platform like LinkedIn, where these people's, and here's one interesting fact about LinkedIn, and this is global, but of course, depending on where you are, that money may change. But 75% of users on LinkedIn make over $80,000 a year. So these are obviously the people that have disposable income, that have the level, so to speak, on dictating who could work on what team. This is the kind of network you want to make sure that you're building out. Only 25% of LinkedIn users are making less than that monetary amount, which means they're all professionals, they're all working somewhere. So guess what? Making that great connection can oftentimes lead to that referral into that position that you're desperately trying to get, especially as a fresher, I believe is the term that is used in India. That is a great way to start building that network and lead to referrals into companies once you graduate. Yeah, I love the whole idea of learning in public. It's something that I talk about quite a bit, but not just for the idea of the community, but it also helps you have a reference of what you've learned at one point, and you can usually scroll back and remind yourself of how far you've come. And for me, I love 100 Days of Code, because you can literally see all the posts that you made over 100 days and see how far you've come within that time period. 100 days is a little over 3 months. You're going to cover quite a bit about a subject, whatever it is that you're learning. The one key difference, and I kind of want to mention this because of what Siam mentioned, LinkedIn is definitely a different community and audience from Twitter, but I definitely think you should be investing time on LinkedIn. The main reason why is there's 675 million monthly users on LinkedIn, of which 90 million are recruiters, decision makers, and hiring managers for businesses all over the world. You need to be putting yourself and presenting yourself in a way that's creating that value and showcasing what it is that you know. So I wouldn't be posting 100 days days of code on there, but every single finished project that you have that is not a YouTube tutorial, right? Like, don't post a to-do list. But if you're making other projects, that is the perfect place to display that. And one of the coolest things is, think about the value of the network that you create on a platform like LinkedIn, where these people's, and here's one interesting fact about LinkedIn, and this is global, but of course, depending on where you are, that money may change. But the, what was it? 75% of users on LinkedIn make over $80,000 a year. So these are obviously the people that have disposable income, that have the level, so to speak, on dictating who could work on what team. This is the kind of network you want to make sure that you're building out. Only 25% of LinkedIn users are making less than that monetary amount, which means they're all professionals, they're all working somewhere. So guess what? Making that great connection can oftentimes lead to that referral into that position that you're desperately trying to get. Especially as a fresher, I believe is the term that is used in India. Like, that is a great way to start building that network and lead to referrals into companies once you graduate.
I'm active everywhere. I'm active on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm everywhere. So I really utilize the social media, industry that has, sprung up. But I agree with, all the points that the speakers have mentioned. LinkedIn is great. I think it depends on what you're doing and experience to experience. So I see some people who are really active on LinkedIn and are not really active on Twitter. I know many people who are really active on Twitter and not really active on LinkedIn. I personally love Twitter. See, in terms of opportunities and networking with people and whatever, I tried both the things, and on LinkedIn I got quite a lot. But I think I don't know if people will agree on this or not. I think most of the developers are active on Twitter. Is that correct?
I have a point to make over here, and I agree to the points made by Danny. Of course, I got one of my opportunities that I worked for in the past from LinkedIn. So I would not say that LinkedIn didn't give any good opportunities. It did give, and it does give. So building a right and good LinkedIn profile does matter, and especially at the stage that the college students are in. You have some time, you have the edge over the working professionals, so you should definitely invest time in building your professional and social network. So that professional network actually gives you, it might not give you the latest trends or the very, very fancy stuff on Twitter that you will see, but a lot of times you will find some detailed posts on LinkedIn which you cannot obviously summarize in a small tweet. You will see a person working on a particular project and they are showcasing it on LinkedIn. That is very true. People do that. A lot of opportunities are over there, and especially if you have the premium profile, then you have another set of features that you are part of, LinkedIn Learning and all the resources. Yeah, you do get sometimes the annoying marketing mails, the annoying recruiting mails, just like that. That also happens. So that's another part of the story. But yes, building a the LinkedIn profile is important at this particular point of time, at this stage. Over the period of time, when people starts knowing you and people know your work, to be very honest, even if you post on Facebook that you are in search of job, you will get the offers, because that's what you have built for yourself. But starting out on a professional network, definitely LinkedIn, you should invest your time.
Yes. To sum up, use both. Be active on both. See from where you are getting opportunities or whatever. Once you are settled in your career, whatever, once you are out of the student phase. So, example, I am out of the student phase right now, even though I'm graduating next year, right? Now I don't really check LinkedIn that much or be active over there. I'm mostly active on Twitter. I know some people after graduating, they're mostly active on, let's say, LinkedIn and not Twitter. It's a personal preference, right? So summing up all the points everyone made, be active on both, utilize both are great. See from where you can get opportunities, network with people over there. There's so many points to cover, so let's move forward. All right, next mistake number, I think 5. This is actually a mistake. So this basically means when people are trying to choose the perfect thing, okay, which tech is the best, which tech should I get into, which is the best. I'm only going to learn this thing and nothing else. I'm going to be the master in this. So that is something I would not recommend, because many people then ask me similar question like, hey Kunal, there's so many things so basically the point is that the issue that students face is they ask, hey, I'm just stepping into college or whatever. I have not done much things right now. There's so many things to do. What do I do? Do I do machine learning? Do I do Android? Do I do mobile development? Do I do iOS? Do I do web development, blockchain, or Kubernetes or DevOps or whatever? What do I do as a student? What do I learn? And then which job do I look for? Which skill set do I go into depth? So that's basically like the question for other people as well. Like when you would be speaking, you can put forward your point towards this answer. In short, the question is, how do I find which career should I deep dive into? My answer would be know everything about something about everything. So it does not mean like deep dive into every single tech that is available over there. No, it's called pie-shaped learning. So pie is like two pillars and one horizontal line. That's what I followed, and I think it worked out pretty well for me. So I tried in my freshman year. I just tried mobile development, just like a little bit. Went to a hackathon, watched some tutorial or whatever. Tried web development, then DevOps or whatever. These various things. And then I realized I don't like mobile development at all. Then I didn't do it. I realized I love machine learning and web development and DevOps, cloud-related stuff. So that's when I did a deep dive on that. So I think know everything about something about everything. Now, I'm not saying be an expert in everything. Even I'm not an expert, let's say, in DevOps or whatever. I'm not an expert. I learn every day. I am still learning so many things. I'm not an expert in web development, but I know enough to get the job done, and I'm like learning continuously. So my main area of interest, I think that's the way to find. And one more thing that I think definitely everyone will agree on. This is something every developer will agree on. Never stop learning. Things change. Libraries change. Frameworks change. New things come out every time. So in cloud native, so many projects are coming out. So many times in JavaScript world, so many frameworks are coming out. And now Kubernetes is new, but let's say 10, 20 years down the line, who knows, right? So it does not mean like you will be out of job or whatever. No, just keep learning, keep upskilling yourself. And so both the questions I answered, like don't be sticking to one tech and try to see, know everything about something about everything. That is something I answered. And I also answered the always keep learning part. All right, Danny, Sayam, you've raised your hand. Now I'll add some new people as well, but till then you can answer your question. Danny, you raise your hand first. You can go first, then Sayam, you can go.
Absolutely. Just one really small point that I just remembered about the previous point on networking on Twitter. I remember this, and what's funny is I had to look back at the DMs, but I think I'm the very first person that Kunal ever networked with on Twitter. I believe we were in a space together once, and you were almost like saying that it's not possible to network on Twitter, and I sent you a DM, and I said hi, just to prove that it was. And I remember that space. That was funny. But yeah, I think Kunal is kind of got a decent point here. One thing that I would say is I slightly agree, slightly disagree. So I agree that, you should have knowledge in various areas, but I think it's very important to find what it is that you want to do and kind of like really focus on knowing one language really, really well. And the reason why is most technical interviews that you go into, they're going to ask you, what is your strongest language to do this coding interview with? And you can choose that, whether it's Java, whether it's JavaScript, whatever, but that's going to be your preference. And the example that I always give here is when you go out to a dinner, right? Let's say you're getting a steak dinner. Your entire meal isn't the steak, right? Being the steak being your strongest language, it's you have your main item, your steak, and then you have mashed potatoes, you have a vegetable, you have accompanying sides that go with it that complement the main dish. So let's say Java is your main language, right? So one thing that you could pair with it is Spring Framework, right? Really high in demand. Then you can obviously pair SQL with that, so you can have databases. You can pair Angular on the front end, so now you have a full stack where it all complements each other. And I think that's crucial, but it all starts with you knowing one language really, really well that you can use to kind of pass your interviews, pass whatever it is that you have in front of you. Because if you just kind of dabble in everything, you're never going to really master one thing. And I'm not saying that you have to be like the ultimate Java developer, but I'm saying that if Java is your language of choice, it's really good to know a lot of the nuances that you can speak about and talk about in an interview.
Yeah.
And to give you an idea about that, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I think there was some misunderstanding because whatever you mentioned, I 100% agree on that. and I believe I was like saying like the similar things only. So it was like I think my words were not clear, but whatever Danny has said is true. Regarding the Twitter point, that was also like I didn't say that I didn't mean like Twitter is not good for networking. I just meant like we were talking some like about the followers or what, so follower count or what. I think that's a different discussion. But regarding the point you mentioned about the skills part, I agree. Yeah, if my words were not clear, whatever Danny mentioned, that is correct. I said the same thing. Know everything about something, something about everything. Pi itself means that the two pillars in Pi means you're very good at whatever you say, let's say represent. So I'm really good at, let's say, Java. I love Java. Most of my open source contributions have been in Java. So I agree with that point. Yeah. Oh, Pop is here as well. Adding Pop. Huge shout out to Pop. 1,000 people are watching. Go subscribe Popcast right now. That's also a very important tip for college students. Hey Pop.
Hello everyone. Just listening for now.
Belated happy birthday.
Thank you.
All right. Sayam, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, this is a very, very interesting topic. And trust me, even after years of experience, with tons of technologies out there, I still have this, what to learn next. This is so common in students, in everyone, and wherever you go, you will always find new fancy technology out there that will be shining bright, and you will want to learn that, and things like that will always happen. And funny part is our technology industry and the recruitment industry is very, very much funny, because they with the full stack thing that people need from everyone, it becomes very difficult that you can focus on a single thing and do mastery in that. Danny had a very good point that you should have a proper language expertise, because that's what at the beginning, when you will be interviewed first, you will be given some set of problems and you have to solve them. You have to showcase that okay, you can solve them in a particular language, which proves that in future you can do that in any other language as well, because in the end the concepts remains the same. In the end, your obviously the syntax will differ. There will be some additional parameters and additional stuff in other language, additional powerful features in other language, and new things will come up. Rust is gaining. We had Rust Foundation and it is gaining popularity, but it's not that you'll be learning everything, and you will not learn or focus on a particular thing. But it's also not that you should not know many things. It's okay to know many things. Like Kunal said, there's a kind of curve. You should know some things about a lot of stuff, but depth is also very much important. And I would say in a production ready scenario, and it was discussed before as well, the code you write now might not be even used when you are going for a project that is in production. You will be just given a piece of a project, a big project that you have to work on, and it will be very minor set of changes if you're not working on a startup, obviously, and if you're not having a huge product since beginning. But as a fresher, because you are since it's a college talk, so that's how it works. Now, in this recruiter funny way of having full stack stuff, and you need to know cloud technologies, you need to know XYZ, X amount of experience, that becomes really hard for students as well, I agree. But have a path for yourself. Your engineering subjects are really, really good. Do not just do it to pass the subjects.
Spoiler alert. That's our next point.
Yeah, the computer networks, it's very important. You'll learn computer networks when you start understanding the systems, when you start seeing where your systems is getting deployed. Right now you might not care, okay, it's going on Linux and I'm working on my programming front, I do not care. But in the end, when you work on production systems, you will be seeing this is how it is built, this is how it is deployed, this is where it is going. That's where all your knowledge, all your concepts, operating systems, computer networks, your programming knowledge, your OOPS concepts, your data structures, they'll come into play. So that's why do not take this lightly only for marks, only for certificates. That actually covers a lot of previous points as well. Do not do it for those purposes. Do it for the learnings that will help you in future. And that's how it is. You have to be very careful in what you do in the 4 years. Else, you will spend a lot of time revising the stuff which you think you could have done in your past. Don't be that. Do it now rather than doing it late. and do it in a good way, so that you are learning in a good way. Your textbooks are good; they are not bad. You do it from your textbooks, but do it in a good way so that you understand how things actually work. The production scene is totally different from what you are actually working right now in colleges. Some colleges do give you exposures. If you are in IITs and in the top colleges, they do give you the exposures. You do get the exposure in the internships. Definitely you do get that. So try out for the internships, try out to network. All these things are very, very, very connected. And don't ever think that I am putting a bit more time. So don't ever think that I am getting confused in learning a lot of things. Everybody has that confusion. You have to pick what's right for you. You have to pick where you find the interest. Okay, you just started out with cloud. You're finding it interesting. Just go for it. Just learn that. That's how it is. That's how you find your interest. You find interest in web development, JavaScript. You find it easy and you want to like building websites. Go for it. You can do that, and it's super awesome. And you love Java program, like Kunal is proficient in Java. So he's doing that. He's doing that all in. He went all in. He's making a complete course on that. He's went all in. I love cloud native stuff. I'm going all in that. So and on my YouTube channel, you can see everything. I do the new fancy shiny tech, but there is a big but I focus on the production things. I focus on customers, which you'll learn when you work with the big companies. The customer problems are the real world problems that you will solve with the technologies that you are learning today. That's how you should be learning the technologies.
Cool. Pop, you were saying something? I saw you on mute.
It looks like Shive also has something to say first. I think his hand was up before me.
Shive, go ahead. Yeah.
So, Kunal, as we were discussing about the file learning, right? And I guess that is going to be helpful for especially students as well, because that gives them the ability to choose the kind of path that they might want to follow. Because a lot of times, at least I have seen with a lot of my friends as well, that they started out with one thing based on the suggestions made by their friends, but ultimately, by the end of their college, they started to go to a completely another field. But with that perspective in your first year or when you're just starting out, if you don't have to even go and complete everything, right, in that particular field. If you only get, let's say, the basics of all the different kinds of technologies that are there, and today since we are expanding so much, at least the core fields, then you can sort of set your target on, let's say, learning one of them that you're truly passionate about. And trust me, don't just leave a technology that you really like because of the fear that it might get obsolete. Because today, a lot of technologies still continue to exist, and you'll still be able to find roles. You just have to look out for them, as we mentioned, connect with the right kind of people, and the opportunities will still be there. So a lot of times people do not really go because other people say that there are not a lot of opportunities over there. But essentially, this world is so huge that you'll still find opportunities for the different kind of technologies that you might be using.
Thanks for sharing, Shive. I totally agree. Pop, go ahead.
There's something that's, again, that from a technical perspective, you should have those chops. And I think, Danny had an analogy about like going to a restaurant and having your entree and your side dishes. I think what you need to do is build a portfolio on that dish that is your great dish. You're not going to go out there in the world and just if you don't know how to boil rice, you probably, don't have the chops to go out there, but you have to kind of, present yourself in such a way that people understand what you're proficient at. And the problem is, I think, it's something, Siam said earlier as well, is, you can't look at this like it's you need to learn every single thing. You have to be proficient on a couple of things and also be able to demonstrate the proficiency in solving a problem. So I think that one thing that's very that you all should know as students is being able to kind of say, yes, I can do this, and here's how I can demonstrate that in such a way that selling yourself. And I know the term selling is so it seems to have a negative connotation, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to kind of represent what you do. It's not selling, it's just being able to represent externally what you do. So
For those of you who have joined, see 1,000+ people watching, please do check out all the amazing, speakers who are sharing their views. It's a great networking opportunity. Danny, Pop, Sayam, Shivam, everyone else, I can see some familiar faces. I'll get everyone on the stage, don't worry. Do check them out. They do some amazing work. Really nice networking opportunity for you all. Alrighty, I have a lot of points for the next things. So next mistake. I think Sayam already mentioned this. Don't skip your computer science subjects in college. Many people say, hey, my professors, like, they're teaching, I'm not able to understand anything. I know it happens in my college as well. I don't really go to college. I'm just enrolled. I just give exams and that's it. I self-study and I score pretty good. So it does not mean that if you're, like, say, you're not having fun in your online class, or if you are having fun in your online class, or whatever, depends on you. It is not an excuse for you to skip these topics if you're going into these computer science domains or whatever, like Sayam mentioned. So like some of the subjects, for example, operating systems, compiler design, networking, DSA, design and analysis of algorithms, so many other things, networking. Please don't skip these topics in the future. It will help you quite a lot. Again, depending on which field you are trying to go in. If you're changing your entire major to something else, then maybe not. But if you're doing something like related to computer science, the thing is, better be safe than sorry. It will definitely help you. Right now, you're a student. You're getting time to do these. So do these. Because Sayam, I believe you are doing. You mentioned something to me, like you still, and not just you, me as well. And I know many people who still go through and revise these topics every day or other. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The funny part is sometimes I have gone back to my own articles, which are a year or 2 years back, and I look through what was the thing I did to fix this. It happens all the time. You have to go back and revise. It's not that you learn something today and it will be there in your memory forever. It can't be for any of the persons. Your human brain is like that. So you have to revise, but I'm saying that you still have a good chance to grasp the topics very good, so that when you revise next, you don't have to spend much time. It will be less time for you, and you'll get all the concepts just like that, and you'll be able to apply and understand where the systems are actually getting deployed, the whole analogy of software deployment in production. So you have to think from that perspective. Think big. The softwares that you're using, Twitter Spaces, how they are getting designed and deployed in production, thousands of people joining. That's the work that developers are doing. That's the niche stuff that the developers are doing right now.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, it's almost like repetition. Also, like, Siam said, like, there's these topics that you don't pick up every day, but once you kind of get back in that groove, it's like getting back on a bike. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, I can ride this bike. It's kind of very similar things. Like, Siam says that he goes back to old articles. I do the same. Like, I look back at, like, old articles that, that I, like, maybe have helped a customer or an end user somewhere. And then you go back and those things are super valuable. But if you don't have, like, the base knowledge, like, if you don't have that base knowledge or some type of, like, even as a student, some practical experience with, whatever it might be, a specific tool, a specific language, then it's easier to pick up later because, like, okay, yeah, I know the fundamentals of this.
I just want to add on to a point to that. Like, Pop mentioned a very great word. He said the base knowledge. It's very important because when I mention this thing to people, students say, hey, Kunal, everything is available on Google. Why would you want to learn these things? One thing I would make very clear, I never memorize anything. This is why I got like a C grade in chemistry in my final high school exam. I was done with chemistry exam in like 30 minutes. I was like, it dropped my entire percentage. Because over there, a lot of memorization was required. I never memorize anything. Even as a developer, I don't memorize anything. So basically, then another question people ask is, how do you all know all these commands or whatever? If you write these commands again and again in your daily job, it will, become a habit and you will learn it on your own. But I never memorize all these things as such. The thing Pop, Sayam and everyone else mentioned, very, very important. Basics should be clear and fundamentals should be clear. Then you can learn basically anything and you can basically, try out so many things. Danny, go ahead.
Yeah, so, what's funny, Kunal kind of said something that's interesting. And while I agree, like, for most of us, I don't think we've all memorized every single piece of thing. Like, there's tons of things that I Google. There's definitely stuff that you need to know and you will have to know. But, like, for the vast majority of stuff, like, you can research, get answers, get help. And to kind of put that in perspective, one of the best moments of my entire career was probably my first week at my first job in tech, where I was faced with this problem. I didn't know how to solve this problem, right? Like, I'm racking my brain, I can't solve it. And I go to the senior developer at the time, who I still talk to this day. He had like 20 plus years of experience at this particular company. He knew this code base like the back of his hand. He knew it all. And I remember going to him saying, look, I got this problem. I don't know how to solve this. Can you direct me to where I need to be? And he's looking at my laptop for about a minute. He says, I don't have a clue. And he starts Googling right in front of me. Like this, boom, like it blew my mind, because I'm like, even this person that knows everything about what we could possibly be doing in this company doesn't have a clue, and he's Googling it. All the professionals that you look up to that you think are like the geniuses of the world, the Kelsey Hightowers and, the Linus Torvald, they all Google stuff all the time. What I will say is, a lot of the times, even in like a coding interview, you might not have Google present, but you can ask questions to the interviewer to be directed down the path that you need to be solving this thing. Now, one thing that I'll say when it comes to like utilizing soft skills, kind of back to one thing that like Kunal and everybody said earlier, like leveraging other tools to get noticed, like for example, LinkedIn, right? Like LinkedIn has been the one tool that I've used the most to help almost 700 people land their very first jobs in tech, right? All these people have the technical ability. It's sometimes conveying that to the actual decision maker for the role that's the real challenge for a lot of people. If you find yourself with that same problem, I have the entire LinkedIn series, which is completely free. The link is in my bio that you can click on and view that whole thing and you get those jobs. But I think what's crucial is understanding that there is a distinct difference between being job ready and being interview ready. And sometimes learning the skills for both may be slightly necessary, but also understanding that skills in one area is not exclusive to you having skills in that other area as well. There's definitely some things that you need to quote unquote memorize, but please make sure that you're understanding your fundamentals, and rushing through, racing to some arbitrary point is not going to be the way. And a prime example, I see it all the time online where it's like 90 days to become a software developer making six figures, right? 90 days to get your dream job in tech. You know that show 90 Day Fiancé? They can't even get the fiancé in 90 days. Now you're going to get a brand new career making six figures and working at your dream company and getting all the jobs? Give yourself the permission to take your time, learn, and grow within that area. What ends up happening is when you see this arbitrary timeline, you race to a point trying to build and get this job, and you skip all the fundamentals, and then you end up having to go backwards. I've seen it way too many times. Especially in the last year on Twitter alone, I've had this conversation and seen it thousands and thousands and thousands of times. Give yourself the permission, because if you understand and have a strong base in your fundamental, you can scale this entire career in a fantastic, fantastic way.
I was on a Spaces yesterday, and I said this. I think Siam kind of echoed it as well. It was that I think a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves to, like you said, because you see that Danny was a really good point on 90 days to get this dream job and all this, and also learning. As a student, I grew up at a time where there wasn't all of this data that was getting thrown at it. So you all have all of this data being thrown at you without again having that kind of idea of those base fundamental capabilities that you're going to need to be able to expand your skill sets. And I'm going to give props to Kunal. I think Kunal a couple weeks ago did, and maybe it was a week, I don't know the time frames, but I remember there was how to do Git. Git is one of the regardless if it's DevOps or cloud or all of that, that is one of the fundamental things you need to do in any type of open source or, even closed source from a capabilities perspective, right? So if you don't have that as a fundamental, please get those things out to you, but also understanding, application models, understanding distributed computing models, understanding, how to do, multi-tenancy aspects or whatever it might be from an authorization or authentication perspective, having those capabilities, because that's going to help you go forward with jobs.
Thanks for sharing.
By the way, everyone, Popcast Pop on Twitter. Please make sure you follow, like, and subscribe. Sorry.
Way ahead of you. I already mentioned it 4 times. All right. Cool. So 7th. Okay, we already discussed about it quite a lot. So 7th point that I feel like people make the mistake in college. FAANG only mindset. Now, please, I'm not saying don't go for FAANG. I applied for FAANG. I encourage people to apply for FAANG. For those of you who know what is FAANG, I'm not sure about the mindset outside India, so I can't really speak about it because I don't speak about things I don't know. So in India, FAANG mindset is the biggest thing amongst engineering students. So FAANG means Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, and Microsoft. So these companies are great. I'm not saying don't apply or whatever. Amazing companies. I applied. I mentioned everyone. Even my course that I'm doing right now, it's so specifically focused on how you can clear, let's say, FAANG interviews. Okay, so I'm not saying don't apply. I'm saying don't just focus on these things. There are other opportunities as well outside, because people say, hey, I'm not getting any opportunities. There are so less opportunities or whatever. Well, there are less opportunities for you because you are not getting outside the FAANG bubble. So to be quite frank, there are so many aspects like students look into, which is fine. So there's like work-life balance. You get that in FAANG, sure. Maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe people who have worked at FAANG can explain. Pay, yeah, you get great pay at FAANG, but same thing you will get at like some other company as well, right? So even by working remotely, for example, you will. So I'm not saying, like, in short, if I could summarize my points, it's very straightforward points. So I don't think like there should be much confusion. Apply to FAANG. Apply to other companies. There are definitely great options for you out there. But FAANG is not the only thing, because again, I'm just speaking for Indian students because those are the ones I have interacted with. They literally leave everything. They get demotivated. They're like, I only want to do FAANG only. Literally, people say that. And they're like, I will only do computer programming because that is required in FAANG or whatever. In the end, it's like not. I have seen like it doesn't turn out to be very good for them. So yeah, apply to everything. See your options. Apply outside FAANG as well. Apply with FAANG as well. So definitely look at various options. That is the only point I want to make. I'm not saying like don't apply to FAANG. I'm just saying definitely there are many. But I'm not bragging over here right now. But to be quite frank, I got like how many? 73 offers in the last 3 months, literally. And I owe it to open source. I owe it to like networking or whatever, or doing good things in public, teaching in public, articles, blogs, whatever it might be. And trust me, I think like there was no like I never felt like I was missing out. Even right now, working at CO Clouds, days of my life, it's one of the best. Like I get to work with people like Sayam, Alex. Alex is like really next level in his knowledge. Anais, Mark, and so many great people I get to work with, and revolutionary tech. I'm more than happy with this. So why am I saying this? I'm only saying it from my perspective, because when I was in my first year, second year, I was like, okay, FAANG is the only way to make it. I want to do FAANG only. Now that I got involved in open source, interacted with so many startups and cultures or whatever, I realized, yeah, you can really have a great life with outside FAANG as well. So definitely apply wherever you want, but don't be limited to just FAANG. Only, and in the end, do what interests you, do what makes you happy. Choice is yours, but don't be demotivated if you are not able to make it to FAANG. That is what I want to say. Again, choice is yours. Again, freedom yours. Your career, your life. Go ahead. Okay, so many people. Sayam, go ahead. Then Pop, then Danny, then Shivin.
Okay, so this is very interesting topic, and I think I talked a bit about this in one of the live streams that I did with Kunal recently. So how this works is, first of all, if it's very difficult to kind of get the direct opportunities in India when you talk about FAANG coming to the colleges, if you are not from the tier 1 colleges, and now it boils down to tier 2 and tier 3 colleges. How do they look like, and how do they portray their aims? Now, having goals, having aims, having a dream company is not bad at all. You should always have a dream company. If it's okay that I want to work in this company someday at this particular position. Why not? You are allowed to do that. You are allowed to prepare for that. Definitely go for it. But as Kunal said, that is not the only end thing. If you're not getting there, it's not only it's not only very, very good in terms of learnings, in terms of pay, in terms of compensation, in terms of experience, in terms of amazing people out there. You should not only focus on that. Definitely, you can have a goal. You are allowed to have that Google is my dream company. Go for it. Why not? You are allowed to prepare for that. But you have all those years, maybe not now, you are learning, but over the line, say let's say you have gone into the cloud native domain, or you have switched domains in between after landing into a particular job. Now you are being an expert in that particular field, and there is an opening in one of the FAANG companies. Go ahead and apply, and maybe you are the only best person that best fit for that job. You can do it later on as well. There's no end, there's no limit to what you can achieve. So I think that's pretty straightforward. Like, FAANG is not the only thing, but having a dream company is also not a problem. Have a dream company, work for that, and if not, then there will be opportunities time and again in this FAANG companies itself. And I don't know, the FAANG will change its alphabet acronyms for different companies as well. It can happen. So there can be additional alphabets added to that as well.
I just want to respond to that, and please don't please try to think what I'm saying. I never said for everyone else. I totally agree with all the points I have mentioned. Great to have dreams, and in the end also I mentioned do whatever you want. But this is specifically targeted to people who just want to do it because of I have no idea why. They're just like, okay, I really want to do this only, and if I don't make it to this, they literally say that my entire college life is of no value or whatever. Literally, students have said this to me. So having a dream company or whatever, it's great, but definitely there are so many opportunities. But if it's not just
just before I pass it on to Pop, Danny, and Shive, I want to thank you all, because I see a lot of people, a lot of students, and then the community who's listening to this great session. People have followed. I see a lot of DMs, and I see a lot of subscribers on my YouTube channel, which is all cloud native. So if you haven't, obviously do that. But thank you all for this, and obviously I'll reply to the DMs after this session gets over.
Siam, bring up a good point in terms of I don't think the FAANG should be the be all end all. I mean, obviously we should have goals. What you want to do is do what you love, where you love to do it. So HashiCorp came up with, and this is specific to the cloud, right? State of Cloud Strategy Survey, and they said that 57% there's a skills gaps shortage. It's a cloud challenge. That doesn't permeate just to FAANG. That's beyond FAANG. So that means that companies out there, startups, big companies, I don't know, Twitter, a bunch of companies that are out there, Signal, Propsystic, we're looking for talent, right? And so the way that you look at it is go where you can get the functional training, or just having this past experience. It could be at a startup, it could be at the FAANG company, it could be all that. Just because when you have commensurate experience, you grow as a person. You grow your skill sets, and you're much more valuable. And so, don't shoot for the stars, and don't be, or you should shoot for the stars, but don't also come down when there's a point where there's not, that opportunity, where it's kind of going to a smaller place and then springboarding would be the way to do it. But then also allows you to network and allows you to grow. Going on Twitter and kind of seeing, where companies are going and finding those capabilities. The be all end all, doesn't have to be that huge destination. It's the experience, this whole journey, right? That to me is the best part of this. My journey didn't start with expecting to be, I was at a couple of big companies, but I also had times at startups where there was times where literally, where I'm doing, I'm going to employ 20 assisting. Seeing it grow to the growth that it has been here has been a joy of my life, because I'm helping to affect the culture. Now, doing that at a smaller company or a mid-sized company or even a larger one, those are great experiences. Pass it over to you, Danny.
Yeah, I've actually talked about this quite a lot. And so obviously I'm at the dev ecosystem team at Google, and I don't normally talk about the fact that I work at Google, because I don't think that's something that I try to boast about. For the vast majority of my career, that wasn't the case. And I actually didn't really have intentions to work at Google until they approached me with this offer and this position. But the one thing that I'll tell you, now being on the inside, Google gets 3.5 million applications every year, right? A lot of people aspire to work at Google, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I'm guarantee it's pretty much the same thing at all the fancy letter companies, right? The FAANGs, and to be honest, FAANG is not really like an acronym that should exist. It should be way bigger. Like, I don't know why there's several companies that aren't listed in that acronym, but go figure. But regardless, 3.5 million people there. Before I started working at Google, I spoke at a lot of these companies. I spoke at Amazon, and I spoke at events with Microsoft, and I spoke at events at Google, and I was really piqued and excited to speak at my very first Google event, and I spoke at it in San Diego in person. And when I got there, I'm speaking to these developers, and I'm meeting all these really cool people, and I'm getting super excited about where I am, because, like, you know, of course, it's every like aspiring developer's dream to be in this building, right? And I'm speaking to them, and I'm realizing, like, I learned one fact that I didn't know before that. The average lifespan of the average Googler is 3.4 years, right? Now, obviously, there's different cases. Some people retire from there. Some people work there for 20 years. But on average, an employee that is hired at Google will last 3.4 years. It's pretty similar for Microsoft and the other companies as well. So if they're reaching the ultimate dream, if they're reaching the place that we all dream about, if they're reaching the place that pays the most, that has the most perks, they've got chefs that are cooking your food, and then they still leave, maybe it's not all hyped up to the way that we think it is. Maybe it's not everything that we dream it is, because at the end of the day, a job is a job is a job is a job, right? What it really comes down to is the people that you're working with, the environment that you feel that you can thrive in, and really the ideas that you get to share. And if they're reaching the ultimate dream, and if they're working at these amazing places that we all aspire to be, maybe it's not the end-all be-all. Because one thing that I say, it's amazing to work at Google, but it's also amazing to work at Jimmy's insurance company down the street, where they have problems that they want to solve and they're paying for it, right? Like, there's opportunities everywhere. What matters most is you find the environment that allows you to grow the most, that it cultivates your inner growth, your mentorships, all the things that you're looking for. And what matters most is that you are a priority somewhere on that list. Because the fact of the matter is, no matter what company you work for, whether it's a mom and pop shop or it's $1 billion industry, I guarantee you, at the end of the day, if you quit, they will continue to exist. So find what matters and prioritizes you in some way. So for me, I turned down 6 jobs in tech before ever accepting my first, because I knew exactly what I wanted, and I knew that idea, that we're at, to some degree, we can all leave a company at any time, or they can leave us. So I want to prioritize the things that it gives me. So I'm looking for mentorship, I'm looking for learning resources, I'm looking for hands-on learning activities. Things like that should be your priority. But most of all, you should be really focused on the actual team that you end up working with. Because if you work with some amazing people, that makes that entire experience worthwhile.
Thanks for sharing, Danny. Shive, yep, go ahead.
Yeah. So just a very quick point. I guess a lot of those points are already covered, which I wanted to share. But just 2 things that I would like to share is that, of course, as we're speaking, that FAANG is not the only thing, right? There are so many other companies which are doing great things, and it's just to keep an open mind and just doing those things that can lead you to gain such kind of opportunities, right? So that is by attending a lot of meetups, events. That's the best way to actually get to first connect with those kind of people whom can share, who can share those kind of opportunities with you. You come to know about those kind of companies over there, right? Connecting with people on Twitter, you'll get to know about those different kinds of companies. Now, the next thing is that at these global events, there are a lot of different companies that come as sponsors. They have their job listings, right? And of course, the kind of pay and the kind of culture that they have is really great, and the kind of things that they are building, right? Even though they are not probably at the level of what Google and other companies are doing, but they are definitely rising to that kind of a level, right? And that's what we have to also focus on, not just preparation for the FAANG, right? And of course, the preparation that you do for FAANG, let's say in terms of data structures, system design, that can still be applied for the other companies as well. So it's just we have to keep our mind open, right? And of course, all the different kind of opportunities will still continue to sort of flow in for you, right? Even for my first ever international conference, I went for the Open Source Summit in Lyon, France in 2019, and I actually ended up getting a opportunity to work in a company in Paris. Although because of the pandemic, again, during the start of 2020, everything closed and I didn't get. But even after that, by contributing to open source and connecting with the right kind of people, I still continue to get offers, as Kunal said, that every once in a while, let's say in every 2 or 3 months, I used to get like an email that, hey, we loved your GitHub profile. Would you like to interview, or would you like to work with us? So those are the things that will start happening to you as well, right? And that is only going to happen when you're connecting with people and, of course, contributing to open source, right? Or doing anything, even if it's not necessarily open source, but you are active in whatever you are trying to sort of build or you want to aspire to, then you'll get those opportunities, right? It's going to happen.
Thanks for sharing, Shiv. Pop, go ahead.
You don't think of a job as just a paycheck. And you're all going to say, what? A little soundbite there. But the job is also a way for you to network and be with a team that has like interests, that has kind of very similar ways, because you never know. Maybe that next job, either it's at a FAANG company or whatever it might be, right? You take those people with you, meaning, hey, there might be an opportunity at another place, right? So don't think of a job as, okay, I got to go to this big company and all this. You got to look for ways that eventually you can be on a team of some sort of like-minded folks or whomever that you can kind of say, you know what, in my career as I progress, they're here and they're thinking of you for opportunities because you worked with them and you were able to, accomplish a task that you needed to. So think of it like that, regardless if it's a large company or what it might be. It's about more than the paycheck. It's about that networking. It's about that, like, finding a group of like-minded folks to do really amazing things. And it permeates beyond just the single job that you're in now. I've worked with certain people, almost 3 jobs. I've referred folks. I'm saying, yeah, this person should be here. This person's amazing, that kind of thing. What happens when, so using that thing, right, to me is a really cool, like, thing of having as part of your arsenal. Just don't think of it as, hey, obviously we all want to pay our bills. I get it. But think of this also as an opportunity to build kind of your resume with people.
Thanks for sharing, Pop. Yeah, I totally agree. Work-life balance, happiness, and peace of mind, and loving what you do, loving your job. Those things are very important. All right. So we mentioned 7 points. I really hope someone is like writing these down, because I don't know how to get the recordings of this. I'll try to export my data later on. But all right. So you can share it as a thread or whatever you learned, or that so people who might not be able to join, they can also watch. All right.